I had been assigned to the second shift at the factory, and since then, it took me a long time to get home at night. The distance from the office to my home was about 1 kilometer. Unless absolutely necessary, I usually avoided the deserted alleys along the way, which would get me home faster, because I didn't like taking those routes. There were lurking thieves to worry about, and on top of that, the dogs over there barked quite a lot, which frightened me. As a result, I always took the main road with proper pavement to get home. That night, the wind was blowing fiercely, and it looked like a heavy rain was imminent. It must be around midnight. The kids have probably fallen asleep by now. My wife, Nirmala, doesn't eat without me, so she must be waiting for me on an empty stomach, I thought as I quickly headed home with my tiffin box in hand. After walking a little way, I decided to take the narrow, muddy alley to reach home quicker. At this late hour, I felt a sense of fear because this deserted, narrow path made me anxious as the dogs appeared to be on high alert, as if they sensed an unknown, unwelcome stranger approaching. Whether it's humans or dogs, uninvited guests are never welcomed. These animals can recognize everyone who comes and goes in their territory at night. Despite my fear, I kept moving forward. With thoughts of thieves on my mind, I carefully took off the wristwatch my mother-in-law had given me at my wedding and slipped it into my pocket. That watch was her cherished possession, reflecting her pride and honor, and she often inquired about its condition. The glow on their faces as they showcased the high quality of that golden watch was truly something to behold. I hoped not to hurt my beloved mother-in-law's feelings, even slightly. As I continued deeper into the alley, it became narrow. If 2 or 3 men happened to be walking together, they had to maneuver back and forth. The road was unpaved in places and somewhat broken, adding to the difficulty. Those living in this alley must be incredibly patient, making their way through these paths daily. At that moment, I sensed 2 things swirling rapidly in my mind, a flurry of thoughts and the rhythm of my steps in this alley. After a short walk, I reached a turn where there was a mosque. Aside from the large horn loudspeaker atop the mosque, little else was visible in the darkness. Yet, I could sense a delightful and subtle fragrance wafting through the air. At the same time, the cold had started to creep in. I was making my way toward my destination, lost in my thoughts. I had only gone a little further when I started to hear footsteps behind me. Until now, there had been no one around. Where did this come from all of a sudden? Who is this? A dog, a thief, or just my own confusion? I was feeling scared as well. I didn't want to rob anyone, and I also didn't feel like getting an injection. Out of fear, my steps began to quicken. The sound of footsteps was still following me. This alley still hadn't come to an end. It takes a bit longer to cross here. I could no longer resist and mustered the courage to turn around and look. There was a woman wrapped in a white sari, rapidly approaching me. From the sight of her coming towards me, it was clear she too wanted to hastily get through this deserted, dark alley. Her white sari made her easy to spot in the darkness. Feeling a bit more reassured, I continued walking peacefully. Suddenly, I felt as if she had stopped right behind me and was calling out, "Please hold on a moment." I turned around. She indeed seemed like she wanted to say something. Her large eyes and an odd glow on her face made her look almost like a fairy. The woman in the white sari seemed to be making her presence known, cutting through the darkness. I asked, "Yes, what is it?" In reply, she said, "Please walk with me. I'm scared due to the darkness." I nodded in agreement. Now we were both moving forward together. Curious about why she was out alone in this deserted alley so late, I asked her. However, she gave no answer. I decided it was better to stay silent. After a moment, she replied, "My house is just around the corner. It's a matter of life and death, which is why I had to go out now. You seemed like a reliable person, so I followed you." Hearing about trusting a stranger at such an hour felt strange, yet sometimes we have to do things like that when in need. I could understand that. And we continued to move forward together. Then the woman reached out her hand to me. In her hand was a sparkling ring. "What is this?" I asked. The woman replied, "You should wear this. It will be useful to you. It will help you rise above your fears and protect you from bad forces." Clearly refusing her, I pulled away from the ring and stepped back a little. "Look, the thing is, I don't believe in all of this. So, please keep it away from me," I answered brusquely, outright refusing to take the ring. I noticed that despite my rude demeanor, her face remained completely calm. She wasn't at all shaken by my blunt rejection. I don't know why, but I felt guilty. Still, I was confident that I was doing the right thing. The alley was coming to an end, and I could see the paved road ahead. Then the woman stopped and asked me to continue on. "Something important was left behind, so I need to go back," she said, turning to head back. I suggested walking her home, but she politely declined, thanking me instead. We then said goodbye and went our separate ways. Once I got home, I washed my hands and face. My entire body ached, and I felt I might have a slight fever. Nirmala woke up seeing me. When she asked if I wanted to eat, I turned her down, telling her to go ahead and eat without me as I lay down. I didn't even realize when I fell asleep. The next day, my routine began anew. I woke up early for morning exercises, showered, took my son to school, and after breakfast rushed to the office. I lost track of time as the morning turned to afternoon amidst work pressure. I didn't even realize what was happening. My coworkers urged me to grab a bite to eat. We started eating while chatting away. During our conversation, I caught a glimpse of the ring on the person's finger, which reminded me of what happened last night. I went on to share the whole story of last night's events. And then what happened? It felt like everyone suddenly had an excuse to poke fun. "You must be so smart. She probably wants to get engaged to you. Let's just think of it as a gift," and so on, all sorts of comments floating around. I figured it was best to finish my food quickly and slip out of there. Then I got back to my work. Somewhere along the way, I began to have the mistaken idea that my colleague's nonsensical comments might actually be true, that maybe I had made a good impression, and that's why she had offered me the ring. It's a beautiful day out, the sun is shining, and the birds are chirping. I became busy with my work. Due to the intense daily production pressure, it was already midnight again today. However, today I had a colleague with me who walked home alongside me. After walking a short distance together, he turned off towards his own home. And right in front of me was that narrow alley again. I was caught in a dilemma about what to do and what not to do. Once more, I found myself stepping into that very alley, as if someone was calling me, or I felt compelled to go there myself. I'm not sure. With my tiffin box in hand, my curious steps slowly moved ahead. I couldn't spot the dogs today. Where had they all gone? It's quite strange. In just one day, these voiceless animals became so familiar to me. I turned from the corner by the mosque and had just moved a bit further when I heard a voice from behind. "Sir, please wait." I stopped dead in my tracks. Turning around, I found that the woman with the flowing golden hair was the same one I had met the day before. She stood there, dressed in a black sari with a prominent bindi, smiling with an intensity on her face near the mosque. Even in the darkness, there was a glow around her. There was a strange allure on her face. "I still need your help today. Will I be able to get it?" the woman said with a smile. Should I say yes or no? I was at a loss. Even so, I nodded in agreement. She joined me. Today she was not quiet. She was talking non-stop, as if she had been waiting for me to ask her what to share, what to ask, almost as if she had thought it all out beforehand. "Who am I?" where do I live, who is at home, what I like and dislike, and so on. She was shooting these questions at me one after another. As I answered her questions, we were stepping in sync, moving forward together. You go out alone at this hour, you should take someone with you, I told the woman. I asked her, where do you live? Who's at home? To this, she just laughed and replied, what will you do with that knowledge? Just pass by this lane at this time if you want to meet, I will show up, and she burst into hearty laughter. I found all of this quite odd along with her response. As we continued talking, we moved forward. She reached into a bag hanging from her shoulder and pulled something out. She kept her fist closed. There was something in her hand, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Then, she asked me to extend my hand. I inquired, what's in there? Smiling, she began insisting that I extend my hand to her, something I was completely unprepared for. When she didn't open her closed fist, I clearly refused, saying, how well do we really know each other? I'm not going to take anything from a stranger's closed fist. When I stood my ground, she finally opened her hand. There was the ring she had tried unsuccessfully to give me the night before. I explained to her that if she had offered it to me during the day, I might have thought about taking it. But this late at night, and given how precious this ring looks just by sight, I'm afraid I can't accept it. Please forgive me. Upon hearing my refusal, the woman's eyes took on a sarcastic glint, and looking at me strangely, she said, I want to make your whole life happy, yet you don't even want to step out of the miserable life you lead. Just try wearing this ring once, and you'll see a new and completely different world, all above the sorrow and troubles, she told me in a sharpening voice. But I was not ready to listen to or accept any of her words. As we continued, we both reached the end of the street. Now, the woman stood still and turned to go back home, telling me to keep moving forward. What happened? Why are you going back? I asked. Without answering, she started to walk back. I found her behavior very strange. If she didn't have anywhere to go, why did she come with me to this end of the street? She did tell me on the way back that if we ever wanted to meet or if I needed this ring, I should pass through this street, and she would find me. I didn't say anything and quickly made my way out of that street onto the main road. Outside, the entire road was illuminated by the soft glow of the street light. However, only a few people were seen walking along the path. But now I felt a little relief. 100 questions raced through my mind about what had just happened. Why was that woman doing this? What was so special about that ring that made her so eager to give it to me and wear it? Lost in these thoughts, I arrived home. Today, I was again feeling feverish. I asked Nirmala for some medicine and lay down after taking it. When Nirmala called me for food, I declined. She came and sat beside me. While rubbing my head, she questioned why I hadn't been well for the last 2 days and suggested I see a doctor tomorrow. Then, seeing me exhausted, she didn't say much more. The next morning, when I woke up, my head felt heavy, so I just stayed in bed. I couldn't even get the kids to school today. Nirmala had to take them. After finishing some chores in the kitchen, she came and sat by my side and asked, "What's the matter? Why are you so worried? Last night, you seemed very troubled." So, I recounted to her all the incidents that had happened in that alley with me over the past 2 days. After hearing me out, she reassured me by saying not to worry, that nothing would happen, and that everything would be all right. Then she focused on her homework. I also lay there with my eyes closed on the bed. After a little while, Nirmala called out for me to get ready after showering, as someone is coming over to the house. I asked, "Who?" We heard a voice from there, saying that when they come, we would see for ourselves. An hour later, our family priest knocked at the door. We both bowed to him. My wife offered him a chair to sit down. The priest was gazing at me intently. Nirmala brought some refreshments for him, After enjoying the snacks and chatting for a while, the priest called me over, placed his hands on my head, and closed his eyes. He then asked me in detail about everything that had happened over the past 2 days. I shared everything with him. I could clearly see the tension on his face. He took some sacred ash from his bag and placed it on my forehead. My wife, who was sitting nearby, was watching this with keen attention. "The jinn you met is real," the priest explained. "It was limited to the very end of the alley, that's why it didn't extend beyond that." Suddenly, the strong scent that filled the air, and the chill, it's all evidence of the jinn's presence. It wanted to pull you into its world through that ring. If you had made the mistake of wearing it, a great misfortune would have befallen you. Hearing this, I trembled with fear. Nirmala held my hand to reassure me. The priest said there's no reason to be afraid now, there's no threat anymore. But yes, always remember that no matter what happens, never go down that alley at night, even by mistake. Because up to this point, that jinn has been trying to lure you with its beauty and love and has been attempting to take you away solely with that ring. And you are fortunate that you reached the end of the alley, the point where it terminates, where its boundary finishes. This is why it couldn't do much and had to retreat. I then interrupted the priest, saying, "But, Pundit Ji, there are so many people who live in that alley. What about them?" The priest smiled and replied, "All right, tell me this, at that moment, did you see anyone else in that alley, apart from that jinn?" "No, right? Because people know about this, so no one goes out at night. Only dogs can be seen." I interrupted the priest again, saying, "I found it very strange. On the first day when I entered that alley, there were a lot of dogs who began barking the moment they saw me. But when I re-entered the alley the next day, not a single dog was there. So then what?" And as I was speaking, I suddenly fell silent. I had come to understand its meaning on my own. Yes, you understood correctly. This was indeed the influence of that jinn. Jinns are extremely powerful. They can easily impose their influence on anyone and can effortlessly bring someone under their control. "You are very lucky to have escaped," the priest informed me. "And if possible, change your work shifts to mornings for a few days so you can get home before evening," the priest advised. "I'm giving you this amulet. Always wear it, no matter what, do not take it off." With this, he took out an amulet from his bag, whispered a mantra, and placed it around my neck. After blessing us to stay happy forever, the priest departed. I was an educated person and had never believed in such things until now. Just as I had told the woman I met in that alley or the so-called jinn, I do not believe in these superstitions. However, my mind was filled with questions about what the priest had said. Yet, what I experienced in that alley was not normal. Everyone has a different perspective on situations. Each person assesses the situation based on their own understanding, and this assessment does not always align with the truth. So what is the truth? Neither did I know, nor did the priest. Only God knows. Yes, there was one thing. My mind was filled with many questions regarding the events that took place in that alley and about that woman. The priest's words gave me some answers. But now I was very scared. For this reason, I would not dare to step into that alley again, not even by mistake. Today, it's been almost 10 years since that incident. I walk by that street many times, yet I still can't muster the courage to go inside. In my mind, there's only one lingering question: was she truly a woman or a jinn?